The monologue in your head never stops. The disturbing part isn't how loud it gets. It's that you don't know who's speaking. There's a voice running beneath everything you do. It narrates, argues, rehearses, replays a conversation from years ago at 2 in the morning for no reason you can identify. Was already running before you finished waking up today. And somewhere along the way, so gradually you never caught it happening, you started calling it you. But if the voice is you, who is listening? The mind that won't quit is something older and stranger than modern life, older than overstimulation, older than the century. The monologue never stops because stopping isn't safe, because the moment it actually goes quiet, the self it has been building goes quiet with it. You are not someone who thinks. The thinking is what keeps you real. Neuroscience has a name for what the brain does when it's supposedly resting. The default mode network, a cluster of regions that activates not during focused tasks, but whenever the mind turns inward. When there's nothing demanding your attention, this network runs at full intensity. And what it does, consistently, is generate narrative. Stories about who you are, what happened, what might come next. Your brain's version of rest is telling you your own story on a continuous loop. This isn't a flaw in the system. It's the system. The self, as far as the brain is concerned, is something that has to be actively maintained. Less like an object and more like a fire that goes cold the moment you stop feeding it. Descartes believed he'd found the one thing that couldn't be doubted. I think, therefore I am. Turn it slightly, and it becomes something else entirely. The thinking isn't evidence that you exist. The thinking might be all that existing is. Which means the loop you can't break, the thought that returns no matter how many times you push it away, that's not noise. That's construction. The self, assembling itself in real time, every hour you're conscious. There are people who've reached the other side of this, not by choice. Certain conditions, neurological and psychological, can disrupt the regions tied to self-referential thought. People who've experienced this describe not absence, but strangeness. Still present, still perceiving, but the story has stopped. And without the story, the sense of being this particular someone, with a history, a name, a thread, comes apart. What remains is harder to describe. This is what the relentless mind is running from. The quiet. Because the quiet raises a question the monologue was built to prevent. If the self is the story being told, what remains when the telling stops? Maybe nothing. The self is a narrative. Narratives require a narrator. And without the voice, there's simply no one home. Which isn't tragedy, just architecture. Maybe something unrecognizable. Something that existed before language gave it a name. Before the word I was ever attached to a body. Before memory gave it a history. Before thought gave it edges. Something that can't answer who it is, because who always required the monologue to make sense. Or maybe the question collapses entirely. If the part of you asking what remains is itself made of monologue, then the question has no ground to stand on. A mind trying to see beneath itself is using the very thing it's trying to see past. If this is the kind of question you want to keep sitting with, there's more here. Subscribe. No answers, just more of this. The voice in your head never stops. Every thought, another layer of a self that needs the next thought to hold its shape. The mind doesn't race because something is wrong. It races because it's the only proof of you it knows how to make. The question was never how to quiet the mind. The question is whether the one who wants the quiet would survive the answer.